Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a financial advisor from Everest Wealth.
And hey, I'm Daisy. I'm a financial advisor from Everest Wealth.
Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information.
Hello and welcome back to the Australian Finance Podcast. I'm your host, Kate Campbell, and today we're jumping into your questions when it comes to your finances. I have two qualified financial advisors from Everest Wealth. Welcome, Alex and Daisy, to the show today.
Hey, Kate. Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, both of you, for coming into our Melbourne studio. It's always more fun to do these episodes in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here as well. Pretty interesting studio. Nice to be in Melbourne as well. Bustling city.
Now, as we're answering your questions today, just an extra reminder that we don't know anything about you or your circumstances, and you need to talk to qualified financial advisors in person, so not just listening to them on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything we say today is obviously a general advice. Myself and Daisy are qualified. However, you should seek your own personal professional advice before acting on anything.
Is this the line you repeat the most, this disclaimer?
Yeah, I guess versions of it, don't we, Daisy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are confused between the difference between what is general information and what is personal.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, it is somewhat blurred as well, right? So, general would be talking, say, about a super fund in terms of, what you can do, things to look for, again, sort of, what the structure is, that sort of thing. Whereas I guess personal advice would be yourself coming to me and saying, hey, I want to look at some ways that I can potentially save tax, in which case now I know you're more about your personal situation, in which case then I can advise the best way to do that, which may be, say, like a salary sacrifice agreement, into super to save some tax.
And do financial advisors often save their clients' money?
That's 100%, I guess, what we aim to do every single time. I guess a lot of what we do is tangible. So, simply ways to save money, make more money, that sort of thing. But then there's also the intangible benefits, I guess, of what a financial advisor can provide you as well around, your goal setting, really getting to know ultimately what you want to achieve. So where you want to be, what you want to be doing, helping you to come up with the best strategy to achieve that, and then potentially picking the best method or product around what that strategy would suit.
It's always good to hear that, because we often get a lot of questions from listeners of when should I talk to a financial advisor, at what milestone, at what net worth, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we get asked quite often, am I too early seeking financial advice? I don't necessarily think you're ever too early to come and see a financial advisor. Setting yourself up early can make massive differences in the long term. So, I think it's, definitely something that a lot of the younger generations are now seeking, which is great. And people aren't leaving it till they're kind of 50s, 60s to come and see financial advice for the first time.
Do you have a lot of younger clients?
Yeah, we do. So, we do have quite a few younger clients, which is great. It's great to see that people are actually interested in their finances at a younger age as well. So, it's really great to see.
Now, the overarching theme of this Q&A, I've put in a lot of questions I've had personally from friends and family recently, because I thought, while you're here, I may as well use your expertise so I can just send this episode to everyone. So it's a little bit self-indulgent, but a lot of the questions I get from friends and family are along the themes of, am I doing enough for my finances? Am I where I should be? And that's questions from 18-year-olds and 80-year-olds. So everyone wants to know, am I doing enough compared to everyone else my age? Am I putting enough in super? Do I have enough saved? Are my goals on track? Heck, I'm 40 and I haven't bought a property yet. Am I doing something wrong? And so I thought you'd be both really well set to talk about that, because you're having conversations with people every day about their finances.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely, I think, a natural prompter for everybody to come and see a financial advisor to begin with, which I think is really good. I think that's a positive thing. Where it can become a little bit negative as well is, they say, comparison is the thief of joy, which is very true as well. So a lot of the conversations we have with clients around that question or that comment, am I doing enough? My friend Jenny, she's done this and this and this, and, I haven't done that. Does that mean I've failed? That sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to, it's personal financial advice, right? So personally, what do you want to achieve? That's what it always comes back to with us. And I guess a bit of a realignment of that, when you come to see us about, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And then we work towards that. And it doesn't matter then what everyone else is doing per se, as long as we're achieving, what you want to do and where you want to be. then we've succeeded.
Because that can often be hard to work out what you actually want to achieve with your finances, because your parents are telling you should be buying a house because that's what they did at their age. And you're going, heck, I do not have a deposit. That is so far out of reach for me. How do you start to focus on what your own goals are and figure out that?
Yeah, it can be quite difficult for people that come to see us that they're like, I have actually no idea what my goals are. So it's like,
I can see that being quite common.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's coming back to the fact of like with property, for example, like it's kind of a thing that everyone wants to own their own property at some point, or people may be pushed on that from their parents, as you said. And it's like, do you actually want to own property? Like, what are your longer term goals? Like, do you want to be working forever, have a mortgage? Like, when are you going to be debt free by things like that? So I suppose it's just having those conversations. And we find a lot with the younger generation, like they really want to concentrate on their lifestyle as well. And it's like, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to have a career change in 10, 15 years if I want to. So it's about kind of more of those conversations than I want to buy this property in this suburb kind of thing as well.
How do you balance that with clients if they're saying, I want this lifestyle, but they don't quite have the finances to back that up at the moment?
I suppose it's just showing them, all right, if you continue doing what you're doing, these are the goals you're going to be able to meet. And you won't be able to take $10,000 worth of holidays a year. So these are kind of the changes you do have to make if you do want to reach those goals. So it's a very big balancing act, and it really comes down to people's cash flow as well. And a lot of people don't understand what their expenses are and things like that. A lot of it is kind of linking back to projections, showing them, all right, if you keep doing what you're doing, this is where you're going to reach. Whereas if one of your goals is travel, for example, making sure, all right, we can make these few changes now, and then you can go and do those awesome trips.
And then like with that as well, coming back to your question before, so like when should I seek financial advice? The earlier that you then do that, the easier those changes are going to be, or the less impact you're going to have on your lifestyle, because we simply have, more of the secret ingredient, which is time. Because if you come and see someone, when you're say 60, 65, and you're like, I want to have $100,000, in retirement going forward, and you've only got 150,000, in your super, and you're planning to retire next year, it's very, very hard to achieve that, right? Whereas if you start that in your 20s or 30s, 40s, or even 50s per se, again, the earlier that you start that, the easier we can again adjust to get the strategy in place so you end up where you want to be, and the less impact it has, say, on your immediate lifestyle or how you've been doing things to begin with as well.
Because we often get that question, is it too late? Am I too late in my 40s, 50s, 60s to make a difference? And there is always a chance to change your finances, but it's just going to be a little bit harder because you don't have as much time.
That's right. It just comes down to like how extreme the change probably needs to be. That's probably the way I would describe it, right? It's like it's never too late, but the longer you leave it, probably the more extreme changes you may need to make, depending on what you want to do or what you want to have, or again, the lifestyle design that you're aiming to achieve.
Okay, so the first question is from someone, now this is very reflective of my friendship group, but they're in their mid-20s asking this question, and I've heard a lot of variations of this question. What should I be doing with my finances now to make sure I enter my 30s with my best foot forward, whether that's because I want to travel, I want to move to the country, I want to start a family?
Yeah, so great question, and this is something that we get, quite regularly. Coming into your 30s these days can be quite a big thing. Like, did you know there's coaches apparently these days that which help you transition from your 20s to your 30s apparently. And I think that's just due to, I guess, society out there. There's a lot more pressure these days with, Instagram and influencers and stuff like that. But in terms of like linking that back to the question, what you should be doing, again, it's where possible thinking, the next 5 to 10 years. So for example, if this person doesn't have a house or a property, and that's something that they think is going to become important to them in the next 5 to 10 years. So say into their 30s, they're like, I think property would be important to have my own space at that point in time. Right now, I'm happy, renting or doing, sharing with roommates and stuff like that. It's making sure we're putting things in place now so that's an option in the future. Likewise, if they want to have, a lifestyle around where they can take a decent international trip every year, again, it's putting things in place so they can, it enables them to do that in the future. Likewise as well, from a work perspective, they probably really say they enjoy their career, or they might want to change their career in the future, or again, have the option. It's potentially, again, looking at some investing so they can create another form of passive income, so they're not solely reliant on just their ability to work. So a lot of, I guess, what we do or a financial advisor does, it comes back to, again, where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing? Or what do you think you want to be doing in the future? Because that's definitely going to change, right? Someone who's 25 is going to have different values when the time they're 35. Like, I'm 35 myself. If I think back to when I was 25, like when I was 25, for example, I didn't want to own any property, right? And that's,
Didn't want to be tied down.
Just didn't think it would be necessary, right? Now I've got, 2 very young daughters, a wife and stuff like that. And yeah, if we didn't have a house, it'd be a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
So it just changes a lot. And this is what conversation I have with clients quite regularly. So it's about just getting you on the best path possible, so you have as many options as possible in the future around, again, but then these options are linked back to then what your goals are, i.e. I would like to have the option to have a decent holiday every year. I would like the option to buy a house. Doesn't mean you have to. Doesn't mean we're going to come and knock down your door in 10 years' time and be like, hey, you said you were going to buy a property, you need to now do it. But again, you're in the position to do that, as opposed to, hey, I'm now 35. Geez, I'd like to get a property. Oh, I've got nothing saved. I haven't invested anything. Oh, if I just, and again, something we hear quite often is like, if I just started this 10 years ago, I just started this a year ago, I'd be in such a different position. Yeah. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah. I think the options part is the important thing there, because most people are not thinking about what they're going to be doing in 10 years' time. They don't know what their life's going to look like. They don't know who's going to be in it, if there's going to be other people that they're living with. And so you can't plan exactly that in 10 years I'm going to be wanting a property in this place, in this suburb, in this state. But you can go, well, I'm going to want options and choices in 10 years' time. Chances are I'm going to want to have more financial freedom. And so what can you do today to be kind to your future self and create more options, as you said?
Yeah, 100%. Like, again, if I can riff on it slightly longer, a common one that we get from time to time is like, single professionals. So maybe they're 28, 29, maybe coming into their 30s, and they think that they may want to start a family in the future, but they haven't met somebody and they don't know if they're going to meet anybody either necessarily. So that doesn't mean that they're definitely going to have that family per se. But again, they want the option from a financial point of view that it's not going to impact that decision in that, say, next sort of 5 years coming up. So again, like you said, preparing, the earlier we can prepare, the easier it will be. Simple as that.
I also feel like kind of your late 20s, early 30s, like a lot can change quite quickly as well. So yeah, having the ability to have those options is really great, because like you could meet someone, it could move fairly quickly, and if you do want to start a family, things like that. So yeah, as Alex said, like having those options available to you is really important as well.
Do you notice a difference with your clients if they did put some financial plans in place earlier in their 20s, that they have a lot more choices now in their 30s, even if they didn't know what they were planning for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, making those small changes younger can make a massive impact, as we've said. But yeah, we do find that if people have set themselves up younger, they come and see us, like even people that have sought advice from us in the past, they come and see us in 3-4 years' time. And it's like, oh, great, you've actually hit all those milestones that we thought you were going to hit. And now they've got a partner or they're pregnant or things like that. And so it is actually really exciting as a financial advisor to kind of help them take those next steps, because they have set themselves up young. They're in a great position as well.
All right. The next question I have, which is probably on the same lines of setting ourselves up. How do I know what my super balance should be? And the second part is, what steps can I take to make sure it's on track?
So there's a few great websites, Super Detective, Super Guru, where you can type in your year of birth and kind of see what the average person your age has in terms of a super balance. So yeah, you can definitely go and have a look at that. In terms of what you can do to kind of increase your super balance, a lot of it comes down to like the fees you're paying, make sure you're invested appropriately. Making sure you don't kind of have 5-6 funds from 6 jobs that you've had where you just set yourself up with a new fund each time. There's definitely some ways like that. There's obviously salary sacrifice, making additional super contributions, but then understanding what you're actually giving up when you're doing those things as well is really important. It's great that, our employers are putting in kind of the super guarantee each year. So people's super funds are generally growing, but it's just kind of understanding exactly where your super is, exactly what fees you're paying, and making sure that you are invested appropriately as well.
When you see the average super balance for your age, that's not necessarily what you should have for your age, is it?
No, not necessarily. That's obviously just the average across Australia. So, yeah, it obviously has definitely some outliers. But, for example, if you are planning on having a family as a female, it can definitely make an impact having those few years off work and things like that. So, yeah, it's definitely not what you should have, but it's just understanding kind of where people your age are sitting as well.
And I'll just add to that, it's not the be all and end all as well. Because if someone comes to see us and they've got, say they're 27, they've only got $5,000 in their super, so they're going to be well below the average, but then they've got a $2 million property portfolio. Well, that's a bit of a different situation as well, because there's not many 27-year-olds that are going to be in that position. So when we have these chats with clients, because it is often a prompter for them to come and see us, let's look at the whole scenario. That's just not focus on one thing, because again, someone can have and likewise, they could have a huge superannuation balance, but then they have nothing outside. And if they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s or 50s, it's multiple decades before they can access it as well. So it's having that conversation around, as Dave sort of just mentioned, that if you want to retire early, say in your 40s or 50s, well, you're not going to be able to access your super. So it doesn't make sense to put extra money into that. Possibly not, right? So hence, building assets outside super is very important too. And again, it's taking the holistic view, or your entire sort of net worth per se, not just, I've got the small super balance, therefore I'm doing bad, right?
That's something a lot of listeners do sort of weigh up, is that should they put extra money in super, or should they focus on building wealth outside of super, especially if they want to be financially independent and maybe leave work at 40 or 50 years old?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very true. It's looking at the whole picture with that. So, because it may make sense then not to put anything extra into super, right? Whilst we can potentially get that tax saving now and again, then say if this person's in their 20s as an example, it's got a long time to compound and grow. However, again, if you want to have accessibility or potentially more options in the future that are not then dependent on you having to work 9 to 5. Well, again, then investing in a different structure is going to make more sense, because then it's more accessible, before the age of, coming into your 60s.
Do you ever use those super fund calculators on your super fund's website? They give you a projection?
So we do our own projections. And again, I guess a good lead-on question to that, often when clients see it, they go, well, is that going to be enough? And that's a very hard question to answer, black and white, because it is a little bit of, how long is a piece of string kind of question.
Yeah,
because
I don't know what my living costs are going to be at 70.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Decades away.
Yeah. If somebody is in their 60s, it's much easier to answer, right? And as a general starting point there will be well, do you like your lifestyle now? Which the answer is normally yes. Okay, well, let's use that as our base, as our starting point.
Probably want a few more Europe trips in there.
Yeah, possibly, but again, or they might want to leave a large inheritance to their kids if they have them, or, give a large amount away to charity. These are just some of the, I guess, that sort of starting points. But generally, people don't want to have less of a lifestyle going into retirement than what they have to begin with. So that's, so generally sort of the starting point there. But that's easier to answer much closer to that retirement date. Whereas, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or even, sort of 50s, you don't know what your living costs are going to be in the future. I just generally work it back to sort of put them at ease that, look, it's projected to sort of hit $2 million sort of conservatively, which again, if you are a younger person and you're listening to this and, you got the super guarantee going in and you are going to work your normal sort of career life, I think generally speaking, you are going to have enough in retirement from a super fund perspective to have a half decent life. Again, it comes down to.
So it does kind of work the way it's designed if you do work consecutively.
I think so. Yeah. Because yes, most people are going to project it to hit between say $1 million to $2 million. So on $1 million, or let's say $2 million, 5% return going forward, which in a balanced portfolio, which is something that doesn't have that much risk, a little bit of risk to it. So it's a relatively conservative-ish sort of number. That's $100,000 a year that you're going to be able to sort of generate of that forever, right, into perpetuity. If it's in pension phase right now, that's also tax-free as well. So it's like the equivalent of earning sort of 140 grand per se, sort of pre-tax too. So that for most people is a pretty decent lifestyle, I think.
It's hard to visualize those numbers so far out.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess as I was sort of ranting before, it comes back to let's get you on the best path for now, but you should review that path regularly as well. You shouldn't come see a financial advisor in your 20s and then never see one ever again. That would be a little
or
bit
just
silly.
leave it to retirement when it's too late to make a change.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Next question I have for you is more on the relationship side. So what questions should I be asking my partner if we're considering combining our finances and thinking about creating shared financial goals together?
Yes, that's a really good question. That's something that we get from time to time. So somebody will come out to see us and they may be in a semi-serious relationship. Also, they're in a relationship, but they're not quite at that point yet. Like they might not be living together as an example, or they just started living together. And again, we'll ask those questions because often, a goal might be, we want to buy a house. And it's like, okay, well, do you want to buy a house with your partner, do you think? And the answer is normally yes, because if it's not yes, then potentially you might need to look at the relationship a little bit more, which I've had that conversation.
People are doing all sorts of different things
Yeah, well,
these
that's
days.
true. Yeah. Open communication, that's the important part, right? But yes, if there are, if there is a direction that you both want to go or you think you want to go, if you're both not communicating and focused on heading to that direction, it makes it tough, right? Because let's say hypothetical, you and me are in a relationship and you really want to buy a house and I really don't. I'm a big spender. You're a good saver. You're an investor. There's going to be some conflict there potentially unless it's effectively, discussed. So yeah, that's what I say is the crux of it. It comes down to communication and just making sure you're on the same page with where you want to go and where you want to be and what you want to be doing. And if those things are vastly different, then look, sometimes potentially that person's not for you either because you're just going to have, you're going to be butting heads the whole time. But if you are on the same page, a very easy way to do it and to build that unity or cohesion is, combining finances, I think is a really good way to do that because it just simplifies the whole process. We view everything as equal. So like that's what we'll do a lot with our cash flow designs when you come to see us, to sort of help with that cohesion. So, we might have one account where both our pays go into and then it's distributed out of that amongst a series of other accounts. So we might have a holiday account and then you've got your own spending account, I've got my own spending account, and we might have our joint goal account as well where we're, putting 50% of our surplus into as an example. But again, nice, clean system. Everyone's on the same page, very transparent, very open. You can spend whatever you want in your spending account. I can spend whatever I want in my spending account. So we've still got that independence. But again, overall, we've got the cohesion, which is at the end of the day, as an anecdotal example, it's going to be much easier to, say, buy a property for a couple than it is for a single.
Is there any small ways you could test combining finances without just going full combo?
Well, a lot of people that we see kind of take the first step where they open a joint account, they both transfer in, say, the same amount per fortnight, and that's where they pay their rent and bills and things from. And I suppose that's a good first step because all right, like my partner is spending that on like our joint expenses and they're not kind of going shopping with that money and knowing that they can consistently put that money into the same account is also a good test where, all right, they do actually have that surplus each pay cycle that, all right, they are actually going to contribute the same, into our joint finances, because a lot of questions that we get as well is around like one person in the relationship may earn a lot more. So a lot of people, there's no real right or wrong way to do that as well. Like some people pro-rata how much they put in a joint account, or they may just be happy to both put the same amount in. So I see that quite a bit on like Facebook groups and things like that is like, oh, my partner earns significantly less than me. How does everyone do their finances? And yeah, everyone's totally different in how they do that. So I think it then links back to your goals as well from there.
Because anecdotally, more people are entering relationships with some financial assets and later on in their lives. And so it seems they're not just going 20 with nothing in their bank account and starting there. So I feel like having some transition period could be a good way to do it. If you're starting a relationship in your 30s and you've already got some money, you might have a property already. How do you do that safely? I think maybe that might be the way to do it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you got to dip your toe into the water, I think, as much as possible. But for me, it just comes back to just have the conversation. So it's like, well, basically, where do you want to go financially? Find out where that is, with your partner, and hopefully that somewhat marries up between where you want to go as well. Or again, you compromise or whatever it is with that, and then you build the system out from that, which let's just start with one joint account and sort of see how that goes for a period of time, and then we can build it out from there. But if you're able to, the more cohesive you are with that system, just the more effective it's going to be, so you can achieve that goal much faster, or a greater goal than what you could achieve by yourself, as an example as well.
You mentioned the spender and the saver in the relationship, and I feel like that's talked about quite a bit. How do you help clients where there's two completely different money personalities in there?
Yeah, it's definitely harder if they are very contrasted. But a lot of the time I've found with the spender per se that generally they might have been a little bit beaten down by the saver, possibly. This is stereotyping a little bit, right? Or made to feel a bit guilty and stuff like that. So the way we sort of get around that is, again, realigning where they both want to go, which more often than not is the same sort of direction. But the spender hasn't been as involved in that decision. So if you involve that person in that decision, they're going to have a lot more engagement, right? So they're going to then understand the consequences of overspending, because then, it's pushing that, say, home ownership, which I know we keep using as the example here, further and further down the road. It's like, okay, well, I've budgeted my spending for $400 a week. If I go over and now exceed that, well, that's then pushing out that home deposit by another week into the future. And I found that's been quite effective. So it's involving them with the direction that you both want to go. And then the good thing about that is, partners should also contrast each other. If you're exactly the same, then you're not going to be together, right? So that's when the saver can come in and help on the micro level of like, all right, how do we divvy it all up and everything like that? But the other person is aligned and fully on board with the direction that that's going.
I also find that quite a few people have said to me, I am a spender, but I'm a spender because I don't have those goals in place. Whereas when we sit down with them, go through that, they do understand what buying lunch at work 4 days a week will do to their long-term goals as well. But it also links back to Alex's point in a couple of having those separate accounts so that the spender in the relationship can spend that money guilt-free and not feel like it's going to then cause arguments, or the saver can't then look at it and go, why did you spend X, Y, Z there? So, yeah, I think it's really important having your structure correct as well.
And I can see that being really good, seeing a financial advisor to have an independent third party which can explain it and help you get on the same page with all of this. Yeah,
definitely. Like one thing I'll see from time to time, not that often, but again, when you've got quite a large spender and quite a large saver kind of personality is, say, again, the spending money is, say, $400 a week. The spender will definitely spend that every single time, which is fine, right? Because it's not going to affect any of the long-term goals or anything like that. And the saver, however, might still only spend $200 of that, which again is fine, because they may then want to put their, say, extra $200 towards the goal, which means they get there even faster. But that is their choice. That's their independent choice. And the spender has their independent choice to spend the spending money that we've allocated as well, guilt-free.
Yeah. And talking about combined financial goals, another question we get a lot is, how can I financially prepare for kids? And people are thinking maybe a few years out now, they're slotting it in with their careers and everything like that. They're wanting to know, well, what's the best way I can put myself in a good position to take time off work, save up for all the costs of having kids?
Yeah, I think people truly do underestimate how much it actually costs to have children. So like car seats, cots, bassinets, all of that definitely adds up. But a lot of it that we do for clients, it links back to what their expenses actually are. So, again, I said before, people don't understand how much it actually costs them to live. So understanding how much it costs them to live, and then understanding what maternity leave looks like. So, some people are really fortunate where they have great maternity leave or paternity leave offered by their employer. So understanding exactly what that looks like, explaining to them what the government maternity leave also looks like, and then linking that back to how much it's costing them to live. So, if, for example, you're on one income and you're in a deficit position just on that one income, it's understanding, all right, how much do we have to save so that one of the partners can have a year off with the child, and we're not going to put ourselves kind of backwards in that position as well.
Because that's probably the challenge, isn't it? Really knowing what all those numbers are, because for a lot of people, the government paid parental leave won't cover what they were previously earning.
Exactly, yeah. So we do find that a lot is, people don't realise how much of a drop of income will come with the government maternity leave as well. So, it's fully explaining that to people and showing them the outcome of that.
Yeah, if I can riff off that as well, like that's a great time really to come and see a financial advisor before that, if possible. We can't always plan these things per se. But yeah, because then you get a really good understanding of what your current numbers are at. So when you're both typically working, and then next year when someone's going to, become the carer and go on to mat leave or paternity leave, what that then looks like. So we'll normally, when you come to see us, we'll sort of show the numbers where they're at now, and then post sort of pregnancy, what that looks like normally for the first 12 months. Just sort of, and then we can sort of see, as Dave said, if there's going to be a deficit there, let's just say it's 15 grand for the year to keep your lifestyle the same.
Yeah.
Right. So it's make sure the mortgage is paid, bills are paid, holidays, spending money, everything like that. What's that deficit number? Okay, it's 15 grand. We've got to make sure we've got at least that going in to keep our lifestyle the same, which we find provides people, a lot of comfort, a lot of financial security, because having a kid, or particularly having your first kid, is a very life-changing experience, and there's a lot going on, right? So the last thing you kind of want to be worried about is money at the same time.
And just to add on to that, so after those first 12 months, a lot of whoever is the primary carer doesn't necessarily want to go back to work full-time as well. So we will have that conversation of, all right, do you know, which a lot of people don't know, but will it be 2-3 days a week? Some people are happy to jump straight back into full-time work, don't get me wrong, but showing them, all right, if you do work 2 days a week as well, this is what your cash flow will look like as well.
So you think that's the best? So if someone is planning, the best thing they could do is really understand all the numbers, write them down, and sort of plan out different scenarios of 12 months off, back to work 2 days, all of these different scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Alex said, it just gives people that peace of mind that, all right, I can have 12 months off. I know how much I have to save for that if I am in a deficit position. I know that I'm not going to be forced to return to work full time. It's just giving people that peace of mind, because obviously it's a massive change in your lifestyle having a child. So it's just, that's one less stress that they have to worry about.
And kids, look, they obviously cost money. As Daisy said, there's a few big ticket items that you'll have to purchase. I recommend looking secondhand wherever you can to save some coin there. But the biggest financial impact is simply that one person is going to have to go to no or sort of half income. That's what hurts you, I think, the most. And
it's the loss of income. It's not the cost of actually having the kid.
That's right, because particularly if you're able to naturally breastfeed, as an example, the food's free for the first sort of 6 months or so. So it's more like you said, the loss of income which really hurts you, particularly in the modern society we have these days, where if you are in a couple, both of you typically will need to work full time to be able to afford a mortgage, or to afford your cost of living these days too. So that's more the killer. So again, knowing your numbers going in is really, really important so you can plan.
Because I assume in most couples the lifestyle has adjusted to factor in both incomes. It has inflated to live off both incomes.
Yeah, generally it has, right? Yeah, that's right, because you're used to both, but that amount of money coming in. So your lifestyle will normally reflect that. So again, you need to then run your numbers so accurately what your lifestyle is going to look like post that, and make sure, again, you're not living beyond your means by mistake, because now you're throwing another human life into the mix. There's going to be less sleep typically and stuff like that as well. So there's a lot of other stresses. So adding a financial stress to that as well, I think is a mistake, or a risk that you can easily mitigate. And you don't even need that much time. A lot of the time, clients will come and see us and they're already pregnant, which is fine. Again, there's plenty of time to plan. It's not an issue. But again, they then can go in and enjoy this next stage of their lives, or that first 12 months, which is going to be typically a little bit more hectic, with the financial confidence that they'll be okay and come out the other side and you move on.
Yep. Awesome. All right. The final question I have, if I don't want to buy a property or don't want to buy it right now, what other financial goals can I work towards? Because most people do want something to work towards.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't have to buy a property to kind of live a wealthy life as such. So, we do have quite a few people that are happy renting, but they have quite a bit of surplus income. So it's like, what do I do with that? Do I just leave it in the bank? Which is where investing becomes definitely a topic for us. So setting up an investment portfolio, which again can provide that passive income. So linking back to their goals if they don't want to work full time from 50 onwards, it's building an investment portfolio, showing them exactly like linking back to projections, showing them, all right, at 50, we could draw a passive income of 20 grand a year. That means that you wouldn't have to work as much. So yeah, like if you don't want to buy a property, there certainly are other options. Creating a really great diversified investment portfolio is definitely one of them that we have a chat with a lot of our clients about.
Yeah, because I think the biggest mistake people can make is they think it's kind of property or nothing, right? Particularly in Australia, where we absolutely, well, most people absolutely froth property, sort of thing. But it's incredibly expensive.
It's every dinner table topic.
That's right. Yeah, particularly now with the rental crisis and everything like that going on as well. However, the stock market has returned very similar over the long term to property as well. So I think the most important thing you can do is, if you don't want to buy property, don't sit on your hands as well, and simply, particularly if you're a younger person and you have a decent surplus or you've got more money than you need, maybe look at some other alternatives to just sort of building it up in a bank account per se. Unless, again, it comes back to what your goals are. So if you are looking to then buy a property, say in 2 or 3 years' time, then you may want to lock that deposit, in something a lot more stable, like a bank account, because the share market, similar to property, sort of inside a 7-year period, can be a bit more volatile in terms of pricing and stuff like that. So I guess as sort of Days was saying before, clients will come and see us. Maybe they're in their mid-20s, and again they're enjoying renting, and they might do a bit of travelling, but by their early 30s, they might want to potentially purchase a property, possibly, or again, just have the option, in which case, investing is a decent way to go outside of property, because again, you can sort of generate a similar return. And again, you're not losing that opportunity by just sort of, sitting on your hands over that period of time.
Do you think the goal of just building wealth is enough for investing? Does that motivate people?
I don't know if it necessarily motivates people until you show them what that can look like, which is a lot of what a financial advisor can show you, which is like, hey, if you put this $200 a fortnight into this in 7 years' time, this is what it could be worth, and this is what you could sort of draw down of it. I think that motivates people a lot of the time, because everyone generally wants to be richer or build wealth, right? Like that's a pretty common thing you say. It's like, I just want to have more money. Okay, well, how much more money?
No one's going to turn down money.
That's right. But it's always like, well, how much more money? Well, I'm not really sure. Okay, so then again, let's get into your actual numbers. What can you theoretically put away, and then what does that turn into? And 9 times out of 10, when people say it, they're normally surprised of what they can do with the money they already have. So I think that's the real powerful thing, and that's the motivator. And then when they get into the the sequence or the rhythm of doing that, they get more and more motivated. They see it compounding over time. It gets them more and more excited, so they add more and more, which is a great thing, I think, at the end of the day.
Wonderful. Well, we've covered a lot in today's episode, from taking actions with your finances in your 20s, finding out your super balance, combining finances with your partners, preparing for kids. Out of everything we've discussed, I'd love to hear from both of you. What is the number one thing you want listeners to do after listening to this episode?
For me, it's just, taking that first step, not putting your head in the sand around your finances, and, kind of understanding exactly where you want to be, having a think about those goals. If you are in a couple, having that chat around, all right, where do we want to be financially? Taking that first step for me is really important, because I see definitely in my career that people have stuck their head in the sand for too long. And then, as Alex mentioned earlier, like they have to make such drastic changes later in life to be able to meet their lifestyle goals. Whereas if you take the steps earlier, it can make a massive difference over the long term.
And I'll take the alternative to that, because if you're more of like a procrastinator like myself and things like that, and those sort of...
There's a lot of us out there.
Yeah, those sort of bigger topics, or trying to have to sort of think, the next 5 years sort of advance, and that sort of, blows your mind, even trying to sort of think about that. Think about more shorter term. In 6 months' time, where do you want to be? In 12 months' time, where do you want to be? Leave it like that. So it's like, in 6 months' time, I want to be in a better financial position. Okay, cool. Let's just start there and basically take action from that.
Amazing. Well, I'll put a link to get in contact with you guys at Everest Wealth in the show notes below, plus any of the resources we've mentioned. But thank you both for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.